Hello and welcome to the MLR V 2.0 tutorial. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at Monome serial and make sure we got everything connected up correctly. In this case, the prefix is MLRV. If you're using serial OSC, then you're just going to want to open up the Monome serial patch and point it to MLRV. So you're going to open up the folder and open up _MLRV.maxPatch. And this is going to take a little bit of time. You might want to consider the things you've done with your life and the things that you'd like to do with your life while the patch loads. Oh, there it is. And so here's MLRV with all our wonderful benefactors and supporters. Ooh, transition. And so now we have the basic interface. You'll notice on the left-hand side is the sample canvas. This is where you drag and drop samples. And on the right-hand side are all your various controls. Down here there's a fader, your delay and sampler controls, mapping. Up here there's some BPM jazz. And oh, what's this? It's a setup button. Let's click on that. You'll notice within the setup panel there's the control area. And with this, you're going to want to choose whatever device you're using. We have several presets in here for you to choose from. There's also a lot of audio driver, other junk in here. Feel free to poke around, explore. I have a finder window here with some samples, so I'm just going to click and drag into the sample canvas. You'll notice that if you drag it onto the left side, it'll auto-load it into the row. If you drag something, let's find a good one, into the right side, it'll just drop it into memory, and you can access it using this drop-down. So here we have two samples assigned to two rows. So if I hit the first button there, it's going to play this drum loop back. And if I hit the first button in the second row, it's going to play this other loop back. And the reason that the first one cut out, or the second one cut out the first one, is that they're both in the same group. You'll see here that MLRV allows you to have 1 to 4 groups. You can also do 6 groups if you're feeling, but we don't necessarily suggest it. So we'll set row 2 to group 2, and if I hit both at the same time, they will both play at the same time, which is very exciting. And so you can hit these 2 buttons on the top, which are the group stops, which will stop the group from playing, which is pretty interesting. Along the top of each row, there's a series of parameters. There's steps. This is the number of steps that the sample is divided into. The next one is octave. It allows you to shift the octave up and down. This button allows you to either play it forwards or reverse, depending on your preference. Along with speed, so you can adjust the speed up and down, and transposition. And this slider right here allows you to adjust the gain. Each row also has a few different play modes. Both of these we've been playing back in loop mode, but there's also shot mode, which will simply play the loop until it gets to the very end, and then it'll stop. And there's also slice mode, which will play the sample until you no longer are holding the button. So it's kind of like a press and hold type of thing. Now let's review the right-hand side of the MLRV interface. In the top right is the tempo and quantization controls, so you can change this to whatever you desire for your tempo, and this drop-down has all the quantization controls. Underneath that is the preset area, and so in this case, if we wanted to save this configuration of all our samples and stuff, we would hit the store button. We'd give it a name. Let's try Wizard Soup. And so it is now saved this preset as Wizard Soup. We can use this left and right button to toggle between the presets that we have. If you'd like, you can hit either, if it's the first time that you're saving it, hitting either save or save as will prompt to save this file somewhere, so we'll call it MLRV preset. And so now this has saved the actual preset file to the disk, and you can recall it by hitting load and pulling that up if you so desire. So to the left of the preset area is a set list, which allows you to kind of construct an order of your presets if you so desire. And turning the set list on will then change the order in left and right when you go through your presets. So you can kind of arrange your presets in an interesting way for a show if that's what you would like to do. So if you want to take audio out of MLR-V and push it through Rewire to something like Ableton Live, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you've completely closed Maxim SP and that you open up Ableton Live first so that it's set as the Rewire host. Then you can open up MSP and the MLR-V patch, and so we have this loaded here. And so we're going to want to go to the setup area and then make sure that Rewire is clicked on. And that's all you have to do, just make sure that that's clicked on. So let's go back to Ableton Live and set up the routing. So we're going to say on channel 1, we're going to take audio from Maxim SP, channel pair 1 and 2, and let's make another channel and take audio from Maxim SP 3 and 4. And we're going to set the monitor to N on both of these. And all you have to do is just hit play within your Rewire host and then start mashing buttons, and you'll see that both audio things are coming through. If you want to record button presses, you would use one of MLR-V's 4 pattern recorders. By default, the first 2 are maps to the 5th and 6th buttons of the top row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the 5th button on the top row, which is going to arm the first pattern recorder, and you'll notice it blinking in the interface. And the number 4 means that it's going to accept 4 beats of input and automatically loop. So let's give it some input. Just hitting some buttons. So it's playing this pattern back and will do so until the end of time, until you hit the button on the pattern recorder and that stops the pattern from playing back. If you hit the button again, it will bring that pattern back that it was playing before. So if you want to delete a pattern altogether, you first stop it, then press and release on the pattern recorder button, and you'll see that it takes the pattern away. MLR V2 has a built-in delay effect that can be controlled by default using the 7th and 8th keys on the top row of your grid controller. The 7th key controls the delay gate or the send, and pressing it and holding it, or either simply toggling it on and off, will open up the ability for audio to be sent into the delay. The way this works is each channel has one of these auxiliary sliders, and as you pipe that up, more signal will be sent to the auxiliary channel, which can be sent to delay. Now the 8th button is a feedback envelope control, and it kind of gives you a dynamic way that you can control feedback. You're allowed to change the attack and the release time and the range through which feedback is applied, and as you hold it down, the feedback setting kind of jumps up and then goes back based on those settings. The delay may be filtered using a high pass and low pass filter, or a combination of both. The delay also has the ability to be based off of time, as it is here, based off of milliseconds, or you can also flip it over to synchronized mode to make it synchronize with the project BPM. Let's now consider some of MLR V2's sampling capabilities. In a similar placement of the delay tab, there's also the sampler tab, which gives you access to the ability to record external sound sources directly to a row of the grid controller. So let's get started by recording from the built-in microphone. We're going to amp up the input a little bit, and I'm just going to hit go. So you see that the claps that I just did were being recorded to the row in real time. So let's go to another bank. Let's go to input 2 and record some different sounds. So if we play that back, MLR V2 allows you to map almost anything in the interface to a MIDI or OSC command. The way in which you do this is you hit Start Mapping, and this view will show you pretty much everything that can be remotely controlled. So in this case, let's map previous preset to button 9 on our grid controller, and next preset to button 10. And we'll hit Stop Mapping. And if we look in the mapping row here, we can see that these buttons are mapped to these commands. And so once we can go through our next presets this way and our previous presets this way. Click in the row and hit the delete button. If you want to set up remote mapping like MIDI, or OSC, you first want to check out the Setup tab and then take a look in the MIDI remote area. Within this area you want to check out MIDI inputs, so let's hit refresh, and this is my current MIDI controller. So we have that selected, and so in this case if we wanted to map our BPM to a knob on the MIDI controller, we'd hit start mapping, we'd click on the tempo, we would turn our controller knob and then hit stop mapping. And if you look inside the mapping row here, this one created 2 entries. We're just gonna get rid of this one by hitting delete. And so if I turn the knob on my MIDI controller, see how this goes all the way from 1 to 1000. If you want to limit an input, you can choose a minimum in the left row. So let's make a minimum of something like 60 and a maximum of maybe 430. So in this case, if we turn the knob again, it has a lot more limited range, so you can get more resolution out of it. If you'd like to remotely control MLR V2 with a OSC remote device like Touch OSC, you're going to want to check out the Setup tab and then look at the OSC remote section, and these values will kind of mirror the layout in Touch OSC. And so once you have all these hooked up, you just simply go to the control interface and you can control it remotely with no intermediary software required.